Intersection Magazine Podcast.
Welcome to Intersection Magazine Podcast. My guest today is Gofaone Modise. I met her through a fellow friend from South Africa. He's a writer and a patent lawyer. So I was doing some work for him and interviewing him about the 2 books that he's published. Then he recommended that I get in touch with Gofaone. So started listening to her podcast, loved her material. Of course, she's been in the game a little longer than I have, so there's quite a lot to learn, which is some of what I hope you guys will appreciate about this podcast. We're going to be talking about bits and pieces about podcasting, her expertise on social media marketing, effective online presence strategies, as well as a little bit of current affairs in terms of what's going on in Botswana. Anyhow, thank you once again for subscribing. Thank you for being a part of this podcast. And let's get into it.
Awesome.
So, Gofaone, tell us about you. Who are you? Where do you live? What do you do?
Yeah. Thanks, Nick. I'm Gofaone Modise. I'm from Botswana, and I'm a podcaster and a moderator, and I'm in the digital marketing space. But I've been fortunate enough to go into a more holistic approach to marketing based on my clientele, based both here in Botswana and in South Africa because of work. And I'm hoping to be a more Pan-African person in terms of my career. But yeah, that's Gofaone in general. My passion points are in mostly mining, particularly diamond mining and beneficiation in mining. And obviously podcasting, because I love being able to kind of share the stories of incredible people that I've managed to encounter rather in Africa.
Okay. I've looked at your numbers in terms of your reach in Apple Podcasts. Tell us a little bit about those numbers. They're rather impressive.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's not as impressive as like the more fun podcasts, but I think based on my region, the podcast has managed to kind of get into the top 200 podcasts in our region, and it's top listened to in Spotify Africa within my region. So it's some really exciting stuff, to be honest. And but I did take quite a number of breaks this year, just kind of revisiting the stories I'd like to tell, and how I'd like those stories to be published and received. But yeah, we're really growing in terms of listenership, in terms of our feedback we're getting, in terms of just the reach we're getting as well, which has been able to kind of span towards 10,000 plus, which is a huge achievement. So that's just kind of how our numbers have been looking. YouTube, oh my goodness, it's so slow, but it's okay still, because YouTube isn't really where my content really flourishes, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips, for example, for podcasting in terms of, because I've noticed it's one thing to have listeners, but it's another thing to have engagement. How do you achieve that?
How do I achieve what?
How do you achieve engagement, listenership, and engagement at the same time?
Oh yeah, that's so good. Primarily social media community. I think we've just kind of found our niche in terms of LinkedIn and Instagram, but also traditional marketing, getting ourselves out there on different TVs and networking events and getting people to know about the podcast, and getting feedback because it's a more businessy podcast,
Yeah.
kind of like with academia, you need feedback. You need to be able to know what works and what doesn't. Are people implementing what you're putting out? Because these type of podcasts, that the type I'm doing, are more impact driven.
Okay.
It's not just information sharing. So social media has been a huge driver of that, and I think the strategy of being able to kind of grow an organic following has been one of the best things in trying to engage people and seeing what their feedback is, and then taking it in and allowing that to shape the next episodes and so on.
How do you choose your topics or your guests?
How do I?
How do you choose your topics or your guests?
Oh yeah, you know, it's not about your following. It's not about how popular you are. It's about how good if you're a thought leader in your specific space. So because it's so broad, it's not industry specific. You do look into different industries, and so there are two main ways. So usually, three main ways actually. Some through recommendation. If someone says, "Oh, such and such knows a lot about blockchain," I'll be like, "Oh, I haven't visited the topic of blockchain before. Let me look this person up. Does this person make sense when they speak? Can they hold their ground in terms of being solid, and is their information verifiable and verifiable?" If the answer is yes, definitely you're going to feature on the podcast. And then two being events. We go to a lot of events, so sometimes we go to some Forbes events and stuff, and we'll kind of handpick based on the people that have been on the panels. And so because of that, it makes it so much easier for us. And then thirdly, I just shoot my shot on people that I think are pretty incredible. Still waiting for Richard Branson to reply my emails. But it's just really trying out. So it's picking people has never been hard. And also I'm someone who really follows their gut a lot. So even if someone does have a good following, or everyone could say that this person's really good and I should feature them on my podcast, if my gut is telling me no, then I probably won't do it. So it's very free flowy. There's no real strategy to it. It's just a matter of what is right and who can hold their ground on a particular topic, because the people that do listen to the podcast, I believe they're very intelligent and they're very smart and are able to dissect and analyze conversations that we have. So I need to also make sure that I take my audience seriously as well. Yeah.
Okay. I noticed, like for example, in some of my work, the episodes that people listen to the most were those where I left my country, Uganda, East Africa, and actually went to another region or another country to cover the country, and had specific conversations with people that I thought were change makers or important people in the space. So those, in my view, have always been more, have gotten me more listenership.
Yeah.
As opposed to the episodes where I do kind of just I have one conversation, or it's just one person, which is me talking about a certain subject. So in terms of format, it's proven that when I leave and I go to another country and I focus on that ecosystem, my numbers are usually a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then what I'm trying to do, I suppose, is because I combine the magazine with the podcast. What I'm trying to do is create a database of innovators and startups and founders, and use that eventually to be in a position where I can start investing, or at least recommending, giving my guests the opportunity to find funding. So, in the sense of my end game, that's kind of where I'm aiming to go, using the podcast as well as the magazine. Tell us a little bit about your work in social media marketing. What insights can you share? I noticed you mentioned that, especially in the African context, that no one can work in silos.
Yeah.
Can you go a little bit deeper? Tell us about that.
I think just before we even get into that, I think when we talk about funding for, podcasts, I think maybe, I don't know if you're going to cut this out of the snippet, but check out a media development fund. I think that's what they call, because there are a lot of organizations that actually do support people like us in terms of funding. But for me, I've kind of chosen the more entrepreneurial route, which is to kind of include the podcast as a marketing part of the marketing plan. So in a sense of, instead of having a TV ad, you can share products and services via the podcast. And because of the audience that we managed to reel in, then you'd find that episode will be purchased by, or sponsorship opportunity will be there within the podcast. And that's how we've been able to kind of monetize the podcast itself, because our numbers aren't in the hundreds of thousands, to be honest, because the way in which we look at numbers, we look at them as individual and people who are actioning that which we teach. So I think as we're still panel beating and kind of reshaping and reimagining what impact looks like for us, what followership looks like for us, what the numbers actually mean, that's been kind of our way of saying this is how it's not about, so if we're going to, collaborate with a bank, we're not going to say 5,000 people listen to the episode. It's more of, okay, cool. These are the people that listen to the episode. This is the feedback we got. How does that translate to you guys' sales? So that's kind of how we look at it. But back to your question, I think I forgot it already, to be honest. It was on marketing, social media marketing.
The silo.
Yeah.
And the silo.
Yes, I think, what I'm realizing is, social media, particularly social media, is that you can't try to be the main person and then treat everyone else as a follower. What works, especially if you're going to try to monetize your brand as a personality or as a business, it's about building community. And when people see themselves as part of community, in which your values are aligned with them, then they're more willing to invest and buy into whatever it is that you're putting out. And especially because the metrics and like the system in which the social media that we're using, that's not African based. So because it's not African based, and these are kind of my theories that I've kind of come upon, and I realize some creators also speak on this, is the very fact that you'd find that content that's more Caucasian driven is easier to find.
Yeah.
You don't even need to kind of, it's you see on your TikTok, you see on your YouTubes, etc. As compared to Black people, and especially if you are, for example, for me, a population of like 2.7 million people, I can almost guarantee my content is not out there unless I have people who are willingly saying, I know that Gofaone publishes episodes every Thursday, or she has this type of content out every Tuesday. I can't see it now, but I know I'm looking for it, so I'm going to search her up. And that's what community-driven content looks like, as opposed to trying to sell. And that's why I'm saying even now, big brands, corporates are looking for influencers, because influencers have managed to build community. So people are not thirsting for the product or the service itself. They're thirsting for belonging and a sense of community as well. So that's why I'm always saying that you really can't, especially within an African context, try to push on and go on in silos, whether as a business or as a particular entity or as a personal brand. Yeah.
Okay. I noticed, for example, that the language, maybe this is probably 20 years old. You notice how the language changed. We started talking about a global village, started talking about community.
Yeah.
Started talking about, it's like the language is going back to things that we as Africans were already doing.
Yes.
Or traditionally
that's so good.
we're
Yeah.
doing. So that's just really interesting. And then last year, for example, I attended an event in Zanzibar.
Yeah.
And the event was they're reimagining what it means to be a community or a country or a startup or nation or it's a whole new way of thinking. But if you go to the root of it, it's a desire to come back to the concept of community. But even more than that, there's almost like a desire to escape from traditional countries, traditional nations, traditional structure. And you know, these guys, I was attracted to these guys because I was pursuing this idea of what is it called, digital nomadism.
Yes.
And going, feeling like, and you see that a lot also where I come from, is you find so many people that are talented but are thinking, man, I want to be patriotic, but I want to be in a place where I can be appreciated and my skills
Absolutely.
can be valued.
Yeah.
So there's that major push for countries that are onto this, are deciding we need to start making our geographies more attractive to digital nomads, where taxation is not too bad, where internet services can be provided, where accommodation is affordable and cheap. We need to attract the best minds, into these spaces. So I see that happening too. It's like we're kind of going back to our roots. Things that many Africans, for example, have been ignoring. Um, the West is coming back to our culture. So that's just a place where I see a lot of promise. I think it's a major trend. What's the landscape like in terms of innovation and technology and startups in Botswana?
So I would, again, this is all my opinion, my views. No one is.
So I understand that.
I'm responsible for all my views. I'd say that I personally kind of struggled being an entrepreneur in a somewhat seemingly creative space.
Okay.
And things like, because when I started my digital marketing journey, I didn't I realized that I was competing against agencies that already had a very well established long list of clientele that paid well. And so I was then targeting your SMME. It wasn't enough for me to sustain my SMME. And so I then transitioned to, grew rather, or expanded, I think that's the correct word, expanded to South Africa, in which it was a greater market. And I was then able to kind of look into that. And it wasn't based on my prior clientele. It was, can you do the job now? And the answer was yes. And then I'd get hired for a particular job. And same thing with moderation and so on. And I think because I haven't been exposed to a lot of entrepreneurs that are doing really well as opposed to your tenderpreneurs. And this was with a previous regime where if you did want to make a lot of money, you would have to get into tendering. And obviously that has its implications, as we all know, with our beloved Africa. And so now I recall our current Minister of Trade, Honorable Ndaba Galata, who's also the vice president. He did say we don't want tenderpreneurs, we want proper entrepreneurs, and this is paraphrased, and which for me was so exciting. And I will say, things like this kind of call for governance to kind of stand up and speak on our behalf, because we can't always be in a situation where the landscape is favorable more for those who tender as opposed to the landscape favoring those who are full-time in business, and their procurement policies do allow for different people to kind of come through, or different businesses to come through and pitch their ideas and so on, as opposed to businesses that are completely reliant on funding. Because how are you even in entrepreneurship if you can't base your business off of whatever you sell, as opposed to I need funding for 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so I kind of had to learn, and maybe I guess the experiences are different because I'm not in construction, I'm not in mining, I'm not in the heavy duty industries, and so I kind of had to learn entrepreneurship afresh in a different country, which kind of did help me. And again, I do understand that in terms of market, South Africa fares far more than Botswana, because I really did struggle with access to markets. I mean, now also, I think we'll see. We're all very excited to kind of see this new political regime and how they fare in terms of us and supporting entrepreneurs, because I will say as well, Botswana is extremely supported, even prior political prior government. We've been really supportive. We've got funding such as CEDA. We have another one called Local Enterprise Authority. They also fund. If you're in the agriculture space, you're also funded. So I say there's a lot of support there, and there's a lot of support for youth as well. But also the downside, rather, is that it does come crippling. It's like growing up as being a child that's coddled until you have to face the real world. In the real world, you're not going to be supported as much as you'd like. And that's why you'd find that maybe in your West Africa, they're more aggressive, and in South Africa as well, they're more aggressive when it comes to entrepreneurship. And speak on entrepreneurship because that's the space I'm in. And they're far more aggressive because they're not as supportive. So you either make it or you don't, and you can't not make it. And so it's kind of interesting to kind of see how that goes. And for me, my experience so far, I think the best decision I'd ever made, being in the space I'm in, is being able to dabble both in South Africa and Botswana, and also just kind of seeing the beauty of, like with AFCTA, being able to trade amongst ourselves with limited, with the limitation in terms of like the red tape. There isn't too much red tape. You do things the right way, and you'd realize that really Africa is open for business, not just for the Western world or European world. It's open for us as well as Africans. Yeah.
Okay. We have the same challenge you mentioned in terms of entrepreneurs. We have what they call grantpreneurs here. Although, like I've met some people who understood the process and were able to transition from competitions to grants to traditional funding models with Series A, Series B, Series D, and then of course the exits. But we see that the temptation is here as well. Let me ask you: do you have do you have like traditional hubs and
like innovation
accelerators? And, hubs.
Yeah, we have that.
And those kinds of places.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think again, in an innovation hub, we're supposed to be seeing innovation that's fostered, as opposed to coming from outside and then they're telling us what we should be doing. And I think, I haven't really caught on the system properly. And I think that's just probably like a common problem where it's supposed to be kind of, the way we kind of see Google and we see all these ideas sprouting and then they implement them and that sort of thing. And so it's kind of made me question if innovation is a problem, maybe not really a problem, but something to be reassessed within Botswana as well. But I do understand that the Innovation Hub, you have projects. I remember there was like the electric car, and that was very exciting. But it just kind of goes halfway, and then we're not really seeing anything post that. And so, what we do have is, I know they transition from Botswana Innovation Hub to the Botswana Digital and Innovation Hub, and then there's just a few issues there in terms of leadership. But I'm not really. I do know that there's been growth in terms of its entrepreneurial growth, being able to kind of be a hub for harnessing and nourishing entrepreneurs. There's been trainings, etc. There've been companies that have grown from there and kind of gone internationally. So I do understand that more than anything, it's just a matter of media coverage and making sure that the world, the rest of Botswana can appreciate what's happening there. But we do have a innovation hub. So that's quite interesting. I will say on a personal note, I haven't really used it. I think also because I was assessing what innovation actually does mean, and things like that. So yeah, it's just it's interesting. So I can't really speak much on it. I'll have my reservations on that.
Okay, cool. Now I just wanted to. I noticed quite a lot of good stuff in terms of collaborations that you've had. Could you please share with us in terms of, at least for the end of the podcast, where can people find you? What are your socials? How can they get access to your consultancy services? I noticed an extensive list of people that you worked with and collaborated with on your socials. Please just get us that information.
Yeah. So I'm primarily LinkedIn and Instagram. Just pop me a DM, pop me on LinkedIn. And it's just Gofaone Modise there. So reach out to me there. And in terms of collaborations, I will definitely say, without a shadow of doubt, LinkedIn has been the best space for me to kind of connect with people and really push my collaboration. And again, I think people should not sleep on networking events. But just oftentimes I think people struggle with networking events because there isn't a clear strategy as to what it is that they're looking for and how they can go about it and who they're looking for. And so for me, I actually, funny enough, the podcast has kind of provided a leeway for me to get into the work that I actually do want to do. So you'd find that when people kind of see me with a particular brand or a particular individual, then there's that curiosity and you build from that. You kind of piggyback off of the person's audience and then they start following you. And that's kind of the quickest way to kind of grow your audience as well. But yeah, that's how people can reach me. Collaboration is key. Even now, you and I, in those particular episodes. So my followers go to you, your followers come to the side, and we're going to just see what synergies are there. And so that's why I'm always saying that collaboration is a really important thing. And also, Nick, I like how every time, whenever there's an episode, you'll say that you have similar issues. I remember that time we spoke about women sometime in March.
Yeah.
And you're like, we have the similar issues. But also you kind of applauded Botswana for being so progressive because we have a lot of women in leadership on our end, to be honest. And it's not, it's intentional, but also they're chosen on merit, which is so exciting as well, right? So, yeah.
I got excited about your performance at the Olympics, Letsile Tobogo.
Oh, yeah.
And then your youth minister, Lesego.
That was
Chombo.
a story for the ages, eh? That was, I mean,
we're so excited.
It was like the African story, really. Yeah. So that was a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you for listening. Don't forget to find Gofaone on LinkedIn and Conversations with Gofaone. It's an amazing podcast. I listen to it. I download episodes and I go through them for content. Thank you, Gofaone, for your time. And
Thanks for having me.
Connect next time. I hope to visit Botswana sometime soon
and
too.
I hope to visit you. So let's make it a plan to make it happen, and we can maybe have an in-person.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Awesome.
Okay, take care.
All right, cheers.
Intersection Magazine Podcast.